I'm Marvel. This channel exists to connect gamers to MMOs they'll love. In this series, I play perhaps the most underrated MMORPG on Steam, Project Gorgon. It's inspired by classic MMOs like EverQuest, Asheron's Call 1, and Star Wars Galaxies, currently sitting at a very positive score on Steam in early access with a demo available for free. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more MMO content. In the last episode, the feline who shall remain nameless invited me to the casino to resolve the outstanding issue of Marl not knowing transmutation. The solution is apparently through this portal. Maybe. Where will this adventure take us? Falling through the portal, Marl stands adjacent to a Red Wing representative amidst an Asian-themed city. Despite the trees being dead and out of season, leaves are falling from the sky. Moreover, the background music is Arabian, so not quite Eastern enough. Either I'm missing something, which is likely the answer, or this zone could benefit from a polish pass. Critiques aside, I'm here to follow the geneticist, who is emphatic that we travel on foot, not augmented by a mount, presumably because sprint speed buffs via the Bard skill do not apply when riding a mount, and is in our case a more effective traveling option. Ah, here is a desert. This area, similar to Sun's Veil, is obviously still a prototype. As we descend from the entrance, I'm notified to consider my hydration levels. The pop-up tells me that there's an icon at the top of my screen, yet I only notice an additional bar below my power pool that I manually moved to just above my ability tray. She leads me to another desert, which certainly feels more appropriate to capturing the sense of being engulfed by an open ocean of shifting sands, not knowing what's beneath you, nor where any obvious respite may be. The sun narrowly peeks its head above the next hill as a new day begins to dawn. My hydration bar does not refresh from the last zone, so if you plan to journey far into these areas, be sure to bring water, which I didn't. Yet we aren't here to only admire the beauty or the meteorological dangers, yet to learn the transmutation skill. After the skill's been learned upon eligible workbenches, you can insert an item to see a diagram of its powers. If you've played Diablo 3, then this system is little different than enchanting via the Mystic while in town. After you select a power, you can see possible replacements. It isn't clear if these are all possible, only a sample of a larger list, or whether or not we can learn new replacements. Moreover, as you'd expect, to change one power for another costs green-colored dust called shoddy phlogiston, whose etymology stems from the classical Greek word for flame, phlox, which became an important term in 18th century chemistry, yet we're here for Project Gorgon, not history. We will explore how to obtain this reagent soon, but for now we must turn our attention to some problems with this skill. I hope that if any developers are listening, they kindly take the following feedback to heart. Players, please shape my contribution in the comments, since ultimately my reaction is a first impression, not a mature perspective, although it has been informed by players of Project Gorgon who have invested hundreds and thousands of hours into the game. Let's begin. You may be wondering why I'm suddenly in a frozen mountain pass within the Gazloop Plateau. It's part of the problem. I transport back to Cerebule Keep. Don't worry, I'll connect these dots soon. The jarring feeling here is intentional, because it's what players do to optimally level the skill. Yet, a cause for celebration is the benevolence of my kitty guide who has showered Rashasa with a homegrown wasp. Back to the skill. Remember Ural from the prior episode? We are now in need of his services. If you ask him to take you to another area, to a certain small island, he'll escort you there for 300 consoles. But why are we returning to the newbie isle to level an in-game skill? Let me break down why this skill is important, how players have optimally learned to level it, and what needs to be done to fix the issue. As you saw earlier in the video, transmutation enables you to entirely skip certain elements of the RNG process of acquiring gear relevant to your character. This enables you to play more difficult content faster, which in turn speeds up not only your character's development, yet your investment into other characters via trades or generosity. In fact, it becomes more or less mandatory to progress because, without it, your gear will remain subpar, disqualifying you from participating in more rewarding content. Much like being too short to ride all the roller coasters, all your friends can enjoy only because they planned ahead of time to wear thick shoes to meet the height threshold. Please hear me, I like important skills. Its value or utility here isn't the issue. The problem is how you level it. You begin by dismantling green gear. But this does make sense though, right? Since your skill in transmutation is at a basic level, you break down basic green gear. That's reasonable. But what type of gear drops when ordinary players meet and win over the favor of the trainer NPC? Mostly blue, red, or yellow. Or does green gear ultimately drop? You guessed it, in the newbie area. But we're leveling an in-game skill. See the problem? Not only that, every time you have to level up the tier of the skill, you have to return to the hidden NPC again, then return to the mountain pass, transport to Cerebral Keep, then hire Ural to escort you back to the newbie isle again and again and again, repeatedly. Thus, the most optimal way to level Transmutation, and the route most players will take, is to spend hours of their time coming here and back again in frustration, grinding a skill they must have in order to progress while no more meaningful development is occurring for the character. Could someone ignore the optimal route? Sure. Could someone just leave an amusement park while all their other friends are enjoying the tall kid rides thanks to metagaming the inches to ride threshold? So, how do we fix the problem? Here are a few ideas. Number 1. Since Transmutation becomes effectively mandatory, teach players the system at the beginning of the game, at the newbie isle. That way, they level the skill as they grow in power. This will also showcase all the various traits and powers of equipment, which will help them cognitively map out their tune's progression. Number 2, do not limit the player from deconstructing items based on their skill tier of Transmutation. There's already too much wasted loot in Project Gorgon. Instead, as you level, let the process be more rewarding in terms of received phlogiston. This makes loot always valuable and provides a way to continually upgrade your character while preserving the integrity of leveling the skill. Moreover, players will not feel forced to travel back and feel like they're ultimately wasting time by being gatekept from more rewarding content. Just remove the need to wear artificially tall shoes. Thus, good game design factors in user behavior and psychology. I hope that the Project Gorgon developers can learn from the administrators at Ohio State University, who, after realizing students use optimal paths to go to classes, they built walkways to facilitate that flow of traffic. Imagine the frustration if the leadership had built fences instead of sidewalks. Games should assume that players generally play efficiently and, when possible, optimally. Games are fundamentally puzzles, and no one likes to purposely waste time solving one. For some context, the Hippocratic Kitty and I spent the next few hours grinding for green loot. Just as much as this was a token of the Bardic Kitty's kindness and generosity, it was ultimately spent in spite of the progression path of Transmutation. Imagine what we could have been doing, other than this, had I simply been leveling the skill from the beginning of the game. Not to mention, we were unintentionally competing for spawns against newer players. That's a great look for those trying out the demo, right? Imagine, immediately after installing Project Gorgon, that you see that the in-game looks like this, running back and forth from the newbie island to grind out a skill with no immediate benefit while competing with newbies for their kills. I don't mean to be harsh, but doctors aren't mean when they give you a truthful diagnosis. Veterans of Project Gorgon, what is your assessment of leveling the Transmutation skill? What can be improved? What recommendations can we as a community make to help the developer shift its progression in a better direction? Also, what did I misunderstand or mischaracterize? I realize that this section of the video has broken from the mold of my typical storytelling, yet that's because the game's storytelling power had effectively paused while we leveled up Transmutation for a few hours. With all of that being said, it's time to finally return the meditation chair to Gearshock, the Ranelon I met very early on in my Project Gorgon journey. Will I finally be able to learn and use the skill Shamanic Confusion? Watch the next episode to find out. Thanks for watching.